Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with life coach Linda Armstrong. Today is Friday, October the 11th, not November, 2019. It is 4 p.m. New York time. That's 1 p.m. Los Angeles, 9 p.m. in London, 5 a.m. in Tokyo, and 6 a.m. in Sydney, Australia. But wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm happy to be doing my Friday show because two things: I get to talk with my friend Linda, and secondly, because I love doing the show, but I love the break that comes on the weekend. There are benefits both ways, if you know what I mean, and I'm looking forward to this weekend, especially since I imagine this is true in your area too, Linda, but we are starting finally to approach peak fall color here in New England. Is that the same thing that's happening in New Jersey?
Not peak, but yeah. Well, not in Jersey. Remember, I'm in New York.
Well, you're in New York. That's right. I doggone, I did that again.
But yes, I'm very close. I'm very close to New Jersey.
Yes.
No, they're changing, but not peak.
But not quite there. But not peak. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're just starting to. I mean, we're not really at peak, but we're starting to get there, and the colors are they're beautiful. And I think Louise and I are going to go out and do a little leaf peeping over the weekend to take advantage. Because
my son and I went driving through Harriman for about 2 hours the other day, and it was overcast and a little bit rainy, but it's just so beautiful. And yeah, you can see a lot of colors changing all around in the
right
horizon. Yeah. So it was really pretty.
It is. It's beautiful. And if you're lucky enough to be out on a day where there's some nice sun angling in on it, everything just pops. Everything is just gorgeous. So yeah, in fact, one of our favorite places to go is the Interstate 90 corridor through Massachusetts, the Mass Turnpike. Because when you hit that in peak season, I mean, it is just loaded with maples and oaks of all different kinds of colors, and you got the beaches. I mean, it's just loaded with color, absolutely loaded. So, yeah, something to look forward to here in New England every year. And some years it's better, some years it's not as good, but it's always good one way or another.
Well, I'm hoping it stays warm a bit longer.
It has been warm, hasn't it?
Not bad, but I like it to say even warmer, a little bit longer.
Because normally peak is Columbus Day. We're past that, and we aren't even close to peak yet. So it's it's like the whole thing got shifted forward into the calendar or something.
Yeah. I remember when I was, really young and trick or treating. I remember trick or treating in our costumes, sweating because it was like 80 to 90 degrees. I mean, those are that's the end. That's October 31st. So it's awesome. I'm hoping for that again. Yeah,
it's 20 days away, but the way this year is going, we could end up with that. Yeah.
Could happen.
Yeah, we could have some overbaked trick-or-treaters. That could happen. So, anyway, we don't really have a formal topic in mind for today, so we thought we'd just do one of our wing it topics, and by the time we're done, I'll know what the title is, but I don't know right now. And that's okay. I mean, sometimes it's fun to do that.
Yeah.
If we get some of our live streamers in, maybe they'll have questions, too. Actually, go ahead.
Well, let's just talk, but maybe I'll pick a card and we'll go with what the cards tell us.
Well, we can do that, sure. I was just realizing there was an interesting thing that I saw. I like getting little ideas for what to talk about on the show, as most of our listeners know by now, just by doing a quick glance at Facebook, because usually there's something of interest there that I can turn into a topic. And I saw one today that it's not a typical thing, but this person was posting about how, they had this question about attracting a romantic relationship. And then they went on this long rant about all the things that had gone wrong with their relationship. But they never actually got around to asking the question, which was really interesting. So I actually posted, I imagine that was fairly therapeutic for you to say all that, but what was your actual question? And it made me think, so often we get so caught up in all these things that are going wrong, we forget what it is we're trying to accomplish. We forget what it is we're trying to attract. It's a good thing to know what you don't want, but you got to turn into, well, what do I want? And we forget that.
And, and that's a great example about how you're just getting pulled outside of yourself.
Right.
And you're being pretty much, controlled or directed by stuff that is outside of you because you're losing touch with what's inside. And the thing that's been coming up a lot lately, especially with relationship stuff at this time during this particular month, you have to first have a good relationship with yourself. Like a lot of people look for relationships to fix things in their lives, but nothing gets fixed until you fix internally and until you love yourself internally or have respect for yourself, whatever the things are that go wrong in your relationships every time, look at that, see what it means to you internally, because if you make the shift in here, then everything ships outside.
Interesting you should say that, because the other post that I saw, there were two I saw. The second one was a post by a young woman who was sharing a success manifestation story. She said 5 years ago she'd been involved with this guy, and she loved him dearly, but all they did was go out every night and get drunk. And the relationship fell apart, and then they didn't see each other for years, and then they finally reconnected, ended up getting married, having kids, and are living happily ever after. And I thought, well, that's really great. But my comment was, what work did you do on yourself between 5 years ago and now? Because you kind of left that part out of the story. Because the way she was telling the story, it made it sound like, well, yeah, I was screwing up before, but all I did was wish for, a wonderful relationship, and it all happened. And I'm thinking, there's a big chunk of story missing there.
Right. Right.
So
yeah.
it really illustrates what you're talking about, kind of in reverse. You have to go within, like you said. You can't just take all your cues from outside. You have to go within. You have to get honest with yourself sometimes. You have to just directly deal head on with what's going on inside. And when you do that, then you can actually have the kind of success that she talked about in her post.
And even not compromising yourself because you think that you have to change to have this particular relationship, to be with that guy or that girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's just not going to last, because eventually you're going to get back to yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
You can't run away from yourself. You can try, but it doesn't work.
All right, so let's choose a card. I got my readers ready just in case I need them.
Okay. Which deck are we drawing from today?
Oops. We're drawing from the Energy Oracle. Here's the camera, I think.
The Energy Oracle. Ooh, pretty illustration.
I just dropped some cards, like big chunks. I'm not going to pull from those. I'm just going to shuffle
our
up.
Live streamers are starting to come in saying hello. So hello, Majan. Hello, Jeffrey. Glad to have you here.
Hello, guys. I can't see the live stream the way I'm set up today, or maybe ever. But that's your job, right?
That's part of my job. Yes.
We'll take care of those guys.
Anybody watching the video, whenever I turn my head to the side, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at the live stream.
Yeah. All right, so let's pick a card.
Okay,
Let's
sounds
see
good.
what it says.
Yeah.
Walking away.
I love it.
Number 27. All right. Interesting. So let's see what the card means by that. I'm sure we can have a couple of ideas.
I think it's already connected to what we talked about, but let's see.
Yeah, it usually is. All right, I think I do need these glasses. Okay, so letting go, moving on. So upright, and it was upright. This card shows someone walking away from an existing situation. She's closing the gate behind her and is walking away into the misty, unknown future. This card upright reveals that it could be a time for you to make a similar decision. There may be something that you're finished with, perhaps a career goal, a relationship, or a long-term experience of any kind. The familiarity of the situation may be enticing, but you're now ready to look at your options on the open road ahead. In reality, an important new beginning is at hand. So that really does speak to it too, because you can't have any real beginning until you're really real with yourself, and not looking outside of you for things to solve all your problems. If I only had the perfect guy, my life would be great. And you might not have that perfect guy for too long if you don't fix those things ahead of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it says this card also indicates that now would be a good time to let go of an old habit, emotional pattern, or false beliefs. Exactly, right?
Yep.
So no matter how deeply ingrained a negative pattern may be, you now have the power to release it and move on to a freer, healthier way of thinking and relating to yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be an inner or outer world, whether it's within the inner or outer world, this card is telling you that you have the readiness and resources to walk away from the old and move forward now. So yeah, so that's another thing, right? Because a lot of times when people are complaining about relationships or having trouble with it, they keep comparing everything to the past and bringing that into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe possibly, and a lot of times, winding up in the same situation. Like it goes back to that same story with the battered wife who next guy beats her, the same kind of thing. We talk about this often, right? Or I hate everybody at this job, nobody respects me, go to this new job. Eventually you hate everybody at that job, nobody respects me. Whatever. Yeah, so unless you do change that inner stuff and go on this new path or this new journey, fixing that old stuff, not even fixing it, just letting it go and rewriting what you want. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time, right? You know, my son sent me a video today, and I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, I can. And this guy was talking. I'll find out who he was. This guy was talking about, he read something in a Richard Branson book, and I don't know which book it was, but it said something to the effect of just saying yes. And he goes on to tell this story, and he read this one day, and then he owns a restaurant, I guess, and he was at the front desk, and somebody came up to him that was in the restaurant and said, "You're Chinese, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Oh, I've been looking for someone to help me find a contact that I can trust and rely on for this business venture in China, and I just can't seem to find it. Would you happen to know people?" So the guy says, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, well, what can we do? You know, can you send?" So he starts asking questions. He goes, "You know what? I'm really busy right now at the restaurant, but let's meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we'll talk about it." And then he says he went home and started using Yahoo because Google wasn't around then, and started just searching for what this guy was looking for. Found a bunch of contacts. The guy shows up the next day and he says, "Yeah, I have a friend." And they wind up talking about this, and like they set up a plan to go meet this guy. 3 weeks later, they go to China to meet his friend who he'd only just met on Yahoo, and they wind up signing. I think he said it was he was 25 at the time, a $17 million contract.
Wow.
For whatever this business was.
Right.
That he knew nothing about. But he read that line in the book and said, what if you just answer everything with a yes? Yes. What do you want? Yes. You know, someone asks you, "Can you do this?" Yes. Right? And see what opens up. Like, that was pretty cool. Now, why did I get on that?
It was daring. Yeah. I mean, because you're basically setting yourself up for that situation where, okay, you said yes, and then now you have to deliver on this thing that, like you said, you know nothing about it. That's kind of a scary limb to be crawling out on.
Yeah.
But it's also a great way to learn fast, and it's a great way to develop your contacts fast and so forth. So
wasn't there a movie, Yes Man or something with that comedian? What's his name? He played.
Probably. I don't know the movie.
Forget it. It'll come back to me. Okay. So anyway, this video, because it's only a 7-minute video. I'm going to find it right here. Let me go back here.
Okay. By the way, the card that you read before, John, raised your hand, says this card is for me for sure. So once again, your rule that lots of people benefit from the card proved to be true.
The title of the video is "How I Manifested a $17 Million Deal at 24 Years Old Using the Law of Attraction."
Wow. And
the channel is Master Sri Akarshana, Akarshana. Master Sri.
Yes.
Now, yeah, he recently is this master through something he did in India, because my son was telling me his actual name. Like, he used to watch this guy's videos. His name's, I don't know, John something or other. But it's pretty interesting because it's the same thing. You know, even like Conversations of God, I've been listening to that book. You know, everything comes back to our thoughts create everything.
That's true.
Yeah. So if you think you can't do something, what if you said, "Yeah, I can do it," and then figure it out? Yeah, I can do it. Right?
It's a very exciting way to live when you think about it.
That's it. I've moved. I've made another shift today. I'm like, yes. And my shift the past couple of days is, you know what I like too about that book, because right now that's what I'm listening to and it's influencing me. And it's nothing that's new, but really God is saying, you know, we're all God. In fact, I was starting a blog post on it. I never got a chance to fix it. Well, we are, you know, we are part of all that is. We're a part of all that is. We are all that is. Part of all that is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
If we think that all that is can create anything, because it's a master, all that is a master creator. Everything is created. And even in that book, they're talking about everything starts with a thought. Right? I mean, no matter who's the teacher, no matter who's writing the book, it still gets right back to that. So, yeah, let's just realize that we are freaking creative and stop bowing down to that fear or that insecurity that says you can't. you're not good enough, it's too late, I'm too old, whatever the story might be. There's no one good out there for me. I'll never find who I want. I always get the same guy. Yeah, stop telling that freaking story.
Right.
I mean, that's part of my 7 tips thing that I have that you can opt in on my website. Mm-hmm. That's one of them. Change your story. I can't say that enough. You got to change the story, or you just keep living it.
And by the way, you have to be the one to change your story. I saw somebody else posting about, well, can you give me some story ideas for changing my story? It's like, no, there's nobody on the face of the earth who can come up with your story for you. You're the only one who can do it.
Right.
I mean, other people could give you ideas, but they're not going to be yours. It's got to be yours.
Yeah, and that ties right back to going within.
Right.
Yeah.
Until you go within, you don't really know what's going on.
And some people are some people are afraid to go within. They're afraid to look at what's there.
Afraid or not even sure how to do it. That's where I was at. What does that mean, go within? I couldn't make head or tail out of it. And whenever somebody said, well, listen to the voice within, I'd listen and I'd hear silence. And so I didn't know what to do with that either, so it can be confusing. But once you realize all it really means is just stay within yourself and just kind of talk with yourself. And
I think the easiest way is just to feel what feels real in your heart. What feels right.
Yeah.
You know that. I mean, your intuition is like hooked in right into that.
Right. Yes.
You can meet people and you can know. I mean, I know I can. If you want to spend any time talking to this person or not. Like if you think they're a good influence or a bad influence on whatever, my child, my business or, anything, myself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that we have that ability is what Abraham points to. They say, you have your emotional guidance system. That's what that is. That's the emotional guidance system. Do you like it or do you not like it? Simple. Right. Yes or no. Prefer or not prefer. Like or don't like. And you don't. There is no right answer. There's no standard you have to meet. There is no. There's no answer book. There's no answer list at the end telling you whether you got the answer right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. It's just what do you like or what do you not like. Do you prefer this thing or do you not prefer this thing? And you're always right no matter what you pick.
You know what I think happens? Because I have a cousin who is very indecisive. Like, I've never been indecisive, but this person is. And, and if now that knowing everything I know now, there have probably been times when she felt so right about something, but was made to feel wrong. Right?
Babe,
so that's an old story that keeps replaying and replaying and replaying. So, that's why it's going to get energy healing to work with someone like me, because we can find those and we can release the energy around it and release the whatever vows, oaths, decisions, beliefs that were born, because your beliefs create everything, Your
Absolutely.
Experience is what either supports you or doesn't support you. So we want to just clear out that stuff, or even make the decision that, I'm just not going to allow that story to keep replaying. And I say yes to this new story. Why not?
The really nice thing, too, is, yes, there are certain old tapes, as they're often called, old recordings that we keep playing over and over again in our heads and in our conversations and so forth that we have to really work on and go after, kind of like what you were talking about. But the nice thing is, most of the stuff that's in there is not a battle to get rid of it. Most of it is just change the story quickly. Tell it, make it up. And the thing that can trip people up is, well, how do I make up the new story? I don't know what the new story should be. Just play pretend. Like when you're 5 years old, it doesn't. There's nothing right. There's nothing wrong. You just play pretend. Make something up. Pretend you're a fireman. Pretend you're a ballerina. Pretend you're a teacher. Pretend you're fill in the blank, whatever it is. And what are you going to do next?
So, okay, something popped in my head. Now it went away, but it was kind of along the lines of, there's no wasted story or wrong story. It's just there's something to be learned from everything, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at that and you're like, okay. And the question that really needs to be asked is, how did this very horrible situation, what did it do for me that was good?
Oh, that's always a good question.
That's the question. Because when you find out, because really it's like releasing resentment from a person. If you have resentment for whatever, say you're a parent or something. Mm-hmm. I always guide people to look for what it was that came out of it that was good, because that person is playing a role, because you have soul contracts, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to be the one who is always putting me down, so that I can find the courage within myself to stand up for myself and to know who the heck I really am. And that might be the story. Could be anything, right? But maybe the person's like, oh, you know what? I actually learned how to not give a shit and just be who I am. Like, okay, so let's release your parents of their obligation to teach you that lesson, right? So then we release that energy. It's gone.
Right.
You don't have to keep repeating it. You learned something very valuable from all that misery, if it's misery, right? So, like say for relationships, you want to look at each of the relationships that you think were wrong or that you made mistakes or that, oh, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that again? Look to everyone and say, well, what did I gain from it? What did I gain for it? How did it help me? Like a lot of times when people I work with have parents who, maybe didn't treat them so great, right? Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that they learn is how to be a parent. Mm-hmm. Right? So my parent taught me how to be a parent by them not being the right kind of parent. Mm-hmm. So why did it have to be that way? I don't know. It's a soul contract, right? You chose your parents. You choose the time you're born. You choose where you're going to live. All that stuff ahead of time. I can't prove that. I feel it's real. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes when you look back at stuff, it's easier when you look back. It's hard when you're in the middle of it, right?
Oh, of course.
But when you look back, you can be like, oh, I could see, that's how you blow the energy. I could see the purpose for that. So that's the thing. Maybe that's the work you have to do is see what was the purpose of all of that and what is it that I want and say yes to what you want. And that's it. Yes to what I want. No more old story.
One of the cool things that you made a point on in that, you had a whole series of good points in that, but one of the really cool ones that grabbed my attention was the idea that you can go in and effectively through clearing energy or other techniques, what I'll call take away the sting of that negative tape that was playing, that negative thought process that coming up over and over again. And an interesting thing can happen when you do that. When you succeed in taking that sting away, taking away that bite that was bugging you all that time, that's when we can see what the good side was. Because now it's not biting us anymore. Now it's not biting us in the butt. And when it doesn't hurt anymore, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I can see that. I mean, Joel Elston posted just yesterday or today, I can't remember which. He posted a picture of himself at the age, I'm not sure what the age was, in 20s, I think it was, when he got booked for theft back in the 1990s. It was his booking photo. And it was a young man, very unhappy, obviously, going through the booking process. And he made a point of emphasizing how, while it wasn't a whole lot of fun to go through it at the time, looking back on it, he sees it as the greatest turning point of his life.
Right.
Now, he certainly wasn't feeling that at the time. That was definitely not in the mix at the time. But looking back on it, he sees that as literally what launched his entire career, which is really interesting.
Right. And that's what happens, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Look at this card.
Uh-oh, what do we got? Accept what is dying.
Yeah. The old stories, the old ways of being. Well, let's see what she says about it.
Yeah.
But, you just got to, and like right now, I mean, I know I feel like I've been put through the ringer a few times already with the way the energy has been changing and things that are coming up. And it's like, oh, this again? No, I'm sorry. Done with this story. But it's kind of like, well, this time, listen, you're going to look at this thing and just be with it. And let it go. And I think I'm looking at things, I don't even know how to describe it. Oh, maybe from a higher vantage point after all of the evolving and different things I've been doing and stuff I've been learning and awarenesses that have been opening up and knowing that there's a purpose for all things. So then you can kind of look at, and this energy just has to purge because we are shifting into a higher vibration. You cannot hold that high vibration with this lower crap stirring around at the bottom of the pot, right? We want to get rid of that stuff.
It makes sense, too, that so many people are feeling so much discomfort as this is happening. Because you're describing this raising vibration thing. It totally makes sense because as the vibration raises and if we don't stay with it, that's going to hurt. That's going to feel miserable.
Yeah.
So no wonder more and more people are feeling more and more miserable because they just haven't realized I got to let go of that stuff. I got to embrace it and let go of it.
And it's kind of happening anyway, whether you're aware of it or not. It's just happening.
Yes.
So that's okay. So if people don't understand what the heck is going on, just keep nurturing. That's another thing too. Another big message lately over the past couple of months is really nurturing yourself, and that's all part of going within, And especially regarding these relationships and things, really, you've got to start there.
There's a lot to be said for being kind to yourself. There's a whole lot to be said for that. Because really, I don't know about other people. I'll speak for myself. I have found that in my own life, when I am most kind to myself, that's when I get happiest. That's when the best things happen. That's when life gets most interesting, most fun. That's when stuff starts appearing out of nowhere. So I become a real advocate of it for myself, and I keep trying to remember to remind myself, on those occasions where I slip back into getting frustrated about something. Be kind to myself. This is Be Kind to Walt Day, so I'm going to be kind to Walt. And every time I do that, I feel better. And as soon as I'm feeling better, I know, something else is going to come. I wonder what's it going to be. And I start getting excited about it.
You made me think of T. Harv Eker, Millionaire Mind. I love
okay.
T. Harv Eker. His whole thing is all happiness now.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness now. Like he would, when he was younger and going through different struggles, and he would go to like his, I don't know if his dad's retirement. He was living with his parents in their retirement village, right?
Okay.
And he'd go to the pool and he'd look around, and all the older people,
right,
were still there. It's like, yeah, I'll be happy when I retire, right? People say that. Yeah, I'll be happy later. I'll do that later. Or, like, I got to hustle bustle so much right now. I'll be happy later. They were all miserable.
Yeah.
Like, they're retired. They're supposed to be happy now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what
I noticed.
That's.
I noticed that when my parents moved into a senior living center in Lynchburg, Virginia, back in 2005, 6, 7, somewhere around there. And they lived in there for quite a few years. My dad passed, and then my mom stayed there for a few more years until she moved out. And my sister took care of her until she passed this past July. But during the time they were there, I would visit them there often, and I got to know some of their friends who lived there. And it was an interesting experience because whenever I was greeting one of their friends as their friend, and they recognized, oh yes, this is Walt Marvan's son, or one of the three kids. It was always a very warm, excited, enthusiastic greeting and so forth. And if you saw somebody, or if they saw somebody that they knew, there was an enthusiastic greeting. And then the rest of the time, everybody sat the way that you described in your story. They all sat with this look on their face. So they lived for the times when they greeted somebody that they knew, and then the rest of the time was just miserable.
Yeah.
It struck me. It really stuck with me. Like, wow. First of all, it told me I don't want to live in a senior center. But second of all, it told me I don't want to live with that thought process. I want to live with a better thought process than that, because that was just not happy.
And that's what we have to do now. Happiness now. Like, that's why gratitude works. Find things to be happy about or joyful about. And if you can, play a game with, okay, here's something horrible going on. Mm-hmm. How can I find something within it that can make me appreciate it?
Yeah.
Or be grateful for it now. Like, learn the lesson now and not have to repeat it so many times and eventually learn the lesson and, like, waste it all that time. Right? Because, eventually you're going to learn the lesson. So here's the card.
Well, that's the annoying part, because no matter how much you put it off, it still comes back, and you end up learning it at some point anyway.
Yeah, it's going to come back till you get it, right? So let's get it now. It really does. Okay, so accept what's dying. It says an aspect of your life is clearly coming to an end. Some area has lost your interest, and you can no longer muster the enthusiasm to carry on. It's time to surrender and let things end with grace. So it says your divine energy is calling you to accept the natural cycles of life and death and directly admit what's presently ending in your life. Let go of sentimentality and be honest and frank in your assessment of things. It's really taking a look, right? Mm-hmm. It says, do not waste time tending to a garden that simply will not grow. It's time for a big change. Face the unknown with courage and confidence. Exciting and more beautiful things await you. There's one more part. It says your divine invitation is understand that in every termination, you're crossing the threshold of rebirth to another level. Rather than prolonging or denying what has ceased to bring life to your spirit, accept the inevitable truth that the cycle for this connection has ended and consciously allow it to die naturally. Don't run from your emotions or deny your sorrow or fear. That's really like going into it, looking at it. Sometimes that's all you need for energy. Like, I know with the gate work I do, something turns on, like a physical thing. We pretty much look at it do a clearing for it, and it's gone. It's like magic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all of a sudden they got a headache or something. Like, oh my God, I got such a headache, or I'm really itchy. I do a clearing. You know, we're looking at it. It's presenting itself, and then it just disappears as fast as it came. I love it. Okay, so it says, I don't know if I read this yet. Don't run from your emotions or deny your sorrow or fear. It's time to resign yourself to divine will and fully trust the normal rhythms of life and death. Remember, all that passes is only in a state of becoming something new.
I don't remember exactly how the phrase was because there was a lot there that you read, but there was one phrase that was something like, if the joy is gone, stop paying attention to it. It's not what the wording was, but it was like that. And it kind of stuck with me like, yeah, there are so many things that we doggedly, determinedly stick with long after the joy of doing it or being involved in it or being a part of it is gone. And it's like we're trying to wring the last possible drop out of it, not realizing that when we're doing that, we're putting up all kinds of resistances to what else could be coming in. But that's how we do it.
Or sometimes you're doing it for someone else, not even for yourself, right?
Well, yeah.
It's like my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but I hate being a doctor. You know, like I want to be an artist. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, and you see that a lot now. A lot of people are like really just totally switching professions, stopping doing one thing, going to something totally different.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, I had to ask you because you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that you had kind of been drawn back toward perhaps trying some painting, and I see you've got an easel set up in the background. Have you actually started doing that again?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
There's a painting on there, but it's not complete.
Well, it's not so much the painting. It's more of the fact that you're going back to it. That's the really big deal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Also, with this, I got a new iPad Pro, and there's like so many programs, like Adobe programs, you can draw with on there.
Sure.
So I'm playing around with that too. Like I don't really know what medium I want to create with, so I'm going with oils and whatever this digital stuff is. Just playing around with it, just bringing that part out again, because I can never let go of that aspect of me, and I have been ignoring it. So yeah, it's coming up.
Well, actually, the way I'm seeing it is that you kind of have told the story by example. You noticed, you in some way noticed an idea or a thought that, geez, maybe I should be doing more painting. I got this feeling I need to go do more painting, and you followed through on it. To use your word earlier, you said yes. Yeah. You said yes to this thing, even though you really weren't sure you wanted to do it, but you said, yes, I'll give it a shot. And then you started to open up to it again, and you're doing more and more of it. And I'm willing to bet that while the process may not have been going on long enough that there are definite stories, there are going to be stories that are going to come out of this that you're going to be sharing over the next weeks and months that come out of having started up with painting or drawing or whatever medium you end up deciding to do. But just because you listened.
Yeah. Well, it actually came in the meditation. It just popped in. I'm like, oh, okay. And I know. See, the thing is, sometimes people are like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know my purpose, because you're just not listening. Like we're always receiving signs. It's just a matter of, do we see them or not? And then I guess if enough of them hit you, you'll notice it. Or, I mean, if you do the stuff I do, I guess I can tell when something's coming in, especially if I'm meditating, something new comes in. I'm like, oh, okay. I wasn't thinking that in my brain. It just dropped in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the point is that you listened.
Yeah.
You listened. And you took action on it too. That's the other thing. Yeah.
You know what? I know what helped with that too is Joe Vitale, because he'll talk about what does he say? Money, love, speed.
Right.
So because he's always teaching about how to be affluent. He was homeless, right?
Yep.
So, and it's the same thing. And I think we've talked about it on this show before. A lot of times people get an idea, but they don't know how to act on it, or they don't act on it. And then like a year later, somebody's marketing that same idea, right? Because the idea's going out, and a few people might be picking up on it. Mm-hmm. It's like, who's going to take it? Who's the fastest one to get it done? Mm-hmm. Money loves speed. That's why he says money loves speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's an interesting point, too, because I understand what you talk about there when you talk about people who don't know what to do next. What steps should I take next? That has held me back on numerous occasions. But in the last few years, I've been learning to kind of take the steps anyway, even though I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of followed the Mike Dooley approach. He said, just pick a direction and start walking. If you're going in the wrong direction, you're going to get signals really quickly that you're going in the wrong direction. So don't worry about what the direction is. You're going to get the signals. Just start walking. So literally, I take that as a metaphorical way of saying, all right, I don't know what to do next. I'm just going to pick something to do that seems to be related to that. And if I kind of pay attention to what's happening, I will get signals pretty quickly as to whether or not, yes, continue along this path, or no, turn right or turn left, or change direction, or rethink it, or, not so much rethink it, but, choose a different plan, something else. But I'll get clues.
Yeah.
And once you get those clues is how you find how to get there. So you don't have to know how it's done.
Right. And in fact, don't try too hard, right? Because that's what happens sometimes too, is we start trying, we start looking for it, but we start getting in that energy of, I don't know, ideas are coming, I don't know what to do. So you need to just distract yourself. Like me, I like watching, binging some show or something like that. Like totally get lost into something else, because you got to free that energy. You got to free those thoughts, or that nothing's working, nothing's coming. I'm not getting any good ideas. My spirit's not talking to me. That kind of stuff. The more you stay in that energy, you're not going to hear a thing. Nothing's going to present. Yeah, it can't. How can it? It can't, because you're in the mindset of, it's just not happening for me. I don't get ideas. So the best thing to do, because it's hard when you're in that mindset. I've been stuck in that mindset before. It's hard sometimes to just jump out of it. But you can distract yourself and then find some reason to be happy for no reason. Like get yourself into that higher vibe. I mean, that's my 7 tips. There's a bunch of different ways how to change your vibration so you can be in that higher vibe, because from that higher vibration, things just drop in.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. I'm also reminded of, I think I've told you, I'm an advocate of an alternative educational method called the Sudbury method, which Abraham has actually talked about. And one of the really cool things, there's a lot you can learn from observing or reading about or watching videos about kids who have been immersed in these kinds of educational environments. One of the really cool things that happens in a Sudbury environment is that kids will move very quickly from one activity to another. And what they're doing is they're trying this out, seeing if they like it. If they don't like it, they go try the next thing. And then they try that one out, and they see if they like it. And if they don't like it, they go try the next thing. And they just go bang, 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 bang until they find something, and then they go with it for a few weeks.
Right.
And it's a really great reminder. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying X, Okay, you have this inspiration. You need to try in some way to make this thing happen that you don't know how to make it happen. Well, first of all, you don't want to effort, like you were saying. And second of all, just try some stuff. Just try. It's going to be something where you can really sort out really quickly whether or not it feels good. And if it feels good, you're on the right track. Or it doesn't feel good, in which case you're not on the right track. Time to switch tracks. You can move along pretty quickly like that. And when you do, you can get to the point where you find a passion really fast. When you find the passion, now you got the path to creating that thing that's really going to win. Because that passion maybe it just drives it at that point.
And even that is a distraction from the thought of, I don't know what to do.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. All right, so I just picked the card and we get Spirit of Air.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I think it's going to be perfect.
I'm sure it will.
Usually is.
Yeah.
All right, so this one says, card meaning clarity and expansive perception of life is emerging. You're being advised to see life from a higher perspective. Clear out the mental clutter. Breathe. All is well. Do not be concerned. The cobwebs are being cleared away. See, that's all that clearing that's going on. And people who aren't even open to this are going through this, not even knowing what it is, right? We're all... even no matter how good things are in life, in some area of your life, you're going through something. You're going through something like this. You're clearing. So it says, communicate your truth. Take care of the details. Pay attention and don't let things slip through the cracks. Take the time to hear the truth of others. Spirit is whispering to you. Open your mind and see a situation in new light. Your native spirit wants you to know the spirit of air represents the mental aspect of your life. It's the part that has the capacity to discern, analyze, organize, evaluate, and judge, which is kind of a good energy to be in doing what you were just describing, right? With trying all these different things.
Yeah.
So through seemingly subtle and unseen, though, seemingly subtle and unseen, air is composed of the most rarefied energy fields. And we're in constant communion with the vast universe through our breath. Yes? The spirit of air carries the energy of change and transformation, inspiration, aspiration, mental clarity, freedom, perception, communion, and communication. Mm-hmm. The element of air also allows you to see situations from a higher perspective. Mm-hmm. This card can indicate that it's time to do some major clutter clearing and organizing. So that's been going on for a while too, right? So the journey says one of the most direct and powerful ways to receive messages from spirit is through air spirit. The Cherokee people and many other native tribes believed that the winds were messengers sent by the Creator, and they carried information from the sacred realms. When you go outdoors, notice the movement of air across your skin. Whether it is the subtlest breeze or the powerful wind of a storm, take a moment to stop and listen. Get a sense of what messages it might have for you. That's cool, because it's pretty windy here in New York. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to go outside a little bit.
Yeah.
Be with it.
Even on a day like this, today's kind of overcast and kind of cold and so forth. So my first inclination, probably many people's first inclination is, I think I'll stay hunkered down. It's just not a really nice day. But you know what? I went out to the mailbox to get the mail. And for us, the mailbox isn't right by the door. It's about a quarter-mile walk. And so I just took advantage and took my quarter-mile walk. And the wind is howling. It's blowing past me. It's kind of blowing me over and so forth. It's not overly cold. It's, it's cool. So I can definitely feel that. And I don't want to be out in it for a real long time. But by the time I got down to the mailbox, I was invigorated. I was like, my energy had been raised.
Wow.
I hadn't been really expected, despite the fact that the weather wasn't idyllic weather. It was actually kind of what people would say was not so good weather. But boy, it picked me up.
Yeah, wow, that's perfect. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, cool card. Yeah. So the power of air. And we're not talking hot air either.
Well, it could be if it's a beautiful, hot summer day.
I
and
suppose.
That breeze comes by.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that was pretty cool.
That is good. Those are very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our gallery of live stream listeners are kind of quiet. They were chatting for a bit and then they went quiet. So I don't even have a question I can draw from there to talk about. But I think I can kind of pick one out of thin air here because there have been a number of things that I've been looking at lately. And in fact, Alex King and I have talked about a couple of them. You mentioned and alluded to one a few moments ago, and Jeffrey actually posted something about it, about the idea of acceptance, embracing and accepting something. And you also earlier alluded to this topic that Alex and I discussed yesterday, which is the topic of self-esteem and how important it is to have self-esteem that's at a high level, and if it's not, to build it up. When you were reading the air card, the thought that went through my mind was, if you have worked on yourself to some degree to the point where your self-esteem is good, you can receive that air, whether it's in the form of a message on the wind or whatever. That air is going to be helping you. If you haven't built up your self-esteem, you can't receive it. You can't receive any of those cards, really, because you're in a place of basically being afraid of everything.
Right, or you're feeling, low self-esteem brings in unworthiness, not deserving. Right. So if you're carrying that energy, it's going to be a little bit hard to have that come in, unless, of course, you are distracted. You can get into that high vibe. Maybe it's not your normal vibe, but you can get into that high vibe. Well, then things can slip in. Mm-hmm. And then someone's like, oh, thank God you took me so-and-so a place because, I feel really good right now, and I have this great idea, and I think it'll solve my problem. You know what I mean? Stuff like that happens. Mm-hmm. And when you notice it, you're like, well, why didn't it pop in yesterday when I was, crying on the couch? Yeah. Then you're going to be like, oh, okay, so maybe it pays to, do things that are fun and stop worrying all the time. And allowing yourself, I guess maybe with self-esteem, allowing yourself to actually be you without really worrying, just being you, living. Because if you're living and enjoy, you're not worried about what people are thinking about you. You just enjoy. Mm-hmm. You're in a high vibe. You're feeling good. At that time, why would you be concerned with what people think about you? You're just
you wouldn't
you.
Be. Right.
And then when you're being you, so maybe what helps that person too is because somebody says, wow, you look great today. Mm-hmm. And then maybe they can start to receive that. I mean, it's hard. It's tricky because people, depending on what happened to cause this low self-esteem, it might not be that easy to just break. You need a little bit of, that's why there are people who can coach and counsel and help people to find themselves when they can't find themselves by themselves.
Well, it's also why I think it's a good idea to actually work on yourself, to meditate or do mirror work or have regular conversations with a friend or a therapist or a coach or something, or anything that you can do to focus on appreciating you. That's really what that's about.
I mean, it's basically what life's about, right? We choose this life to grow and expand. You can't grow and expand if you don't do something to see how you need to grow and how you can expand. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to say, because what came to my mind is, you said you were just talking about this with Alex the other day, and this,
right.
There's no coincidences, right?
Yeah,
the energy was in the air. So these cards that came up, we're just shuffling a deck, and they come up, kind of address and hit a bunch of topics that have been coming up for you, for me, for other people all throughout this past couple of days.
Yeah.
But another thing, that guy I was telling about, that clip that he just started saying yes to everything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He was I probably heard this before, but it hit me differently today. There's no coincidences, right? Because what is coincidence? Coincide, right? Mm-hmm. Things coming together. So that it's not like it's random. Things are just coming together. There's
In fact, it occurs to me that saying there are no coincidences is exactly the same thing as saying everything is a coincidence, because everything happens together. Yeah. It's all connected.
Yeah.
It all coincides. One of my favorite ways to remember that is when especially it comes up when I'm talking with or interacting with somebody who's saying, well, I can't seem to manifest anything. And it's now my go-to answer. You look at your life. You have manifested all of it. You're actually a master at this. You didn't realize it, but you're really, really good at this stuff.
In fact, you manifested that desk. You manifested that window. You manifested that tree. Because if it's in your awareness, you had a part in it.
You certainly did. Yes.
Yeah.
So once we understand that, now we understand, well, the issue isn't whether I can manifest it. The issue is how easy am I going to make it for myself, or how hard am I going to make it for myself?
Right. And you know what? I have to say this before I lose it. And the trick is not to keep beating up on yourself when you don't like what you manifested. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, all right, I always tell people when I work with, just pat yourself on the back. Say, that's okay. You do better next time. Okay, it's all right. No big deal.
No big deal. Yeah.
No big deal.
That's a sign that should be on everybody's wall. No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
keep it
simple.
simple.
The other one? I can't remember who said it. It was one of my co-hosts or somebody in the audience, but somebody kept saying over and over again, there's nothing. Well, how do you say it? There's nothing really bad going on here. That's not the phrase, but it's like no big deal going on here. There's nothing that's outside of control. There's nothing that's outside of, oh my God, I got to get all upset about it and so forth. There's no big deal going on here.
Yeah.
Except that the big deals that are left after that are the good ones.
And I don't want to slight anyone who feels like, but I'm going through all this stuff. What they're talking about is just a bunch of bullshit because it doesn't work for me. And, I get that because it's hard. But those really hard times, if you can look at it like a new beginning, what is this? What is this misery? If this misery could bring me something, what might that be? And then that could start to maybe shift you to think outside the box and not what's presenting itself. Because that's what's presenting itself has been manifesting for a while. It's a bunch of old thoughts that have come together. So at this point, you can decide to change that story. Well, what if I just start putting out these new thoughts? Because to continue to allow, because we have a choice. We can either allow our misery or we can decide to move out of it. And it sounds easy to say when you're in it, but the truth is you can.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, Abraham Hicks, one of the things that I really love that they make a big deal out of, a big point out of, is the idea of expansion. You mentioned the word expansion before, and they make it a very clear thing. Expansion doesn't come from feeling from all the good stuff that happens. You have to kind of dip into the stuff that's not so good first. That's why we come into contrast. We come into contrast to experience the stuff that's not so good so that we can expand. expand ourselves, expand the universe. All expansion comes from experiencing that stuff. So when you're in a really, really tough place, you've just set yourself up for some massive expansion. And if you can look at it that way, it's going to be easier to get out of there, first of all, so that you're in a better place. And second of all, if you can accept it, and I have to admit, that takes some doing. It takes some doing to accept that, yeah, okay, this really lousy place that I'm in right now is actually setting up some massive expansion. But if you can find even some way to accept that, all of a sudden, it's kind of like what you talked about before. You address this thing that's hurting you inside, and you kind of embrace it. And when you do that, it kind of evaporates. That same thing can happen where this really, really terrible thing is that you're at. If you can embrace it, and if you can just recognize this is a launching pad for something great, it starts to melt away.
Yeah. So what I like to do, and I don't even know where I picked it up from, but I like to just ask myself, well, what if this is exactly how it ought to be? What if this really does have a purpose? Because even in just saying those words, it shifts your energy to possibilities. To, okay, well, maybe there is a purpose, and you know what? Maybe it's bringing me something really good. So I like to do that one too. Like, just hold that story. Okay, get this crap is bringing me something really good. All right, universe, what the heck is it?
Yeah, right.
Then you can maybe get allow that little childlike wonder to come in, and be like, all right, surprise me.
It reminds me of the story of the boy who's mucking out the barn, and it's just full of horse muck, right? And he's just mucking and mucking and mucking and mucking, and the stranger comes along and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "There's got to be a pony in here somewhere."
Yeah.
He's determined to see what comes after the muck.
Yep. You know what?
Oh, Jeffrey's got some stuff he's been sharing.
Okay.
I want to share some of his stuff. He says, I was getting up and really working on myself, but I've been really knocked down. I just hate myself, and I don't know how to get over and done with it. For experience, it's a really awful, breaking insult, he says. So what do you think it means that we are all experiencing these things at this time, and we are here now with each other? What would we call this sharing of this vibrational world, he asks.
Expansion.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of people out there channeling how everything's changing. I think if you want to get like scientific stuff, what's his name? David Wilcock is good for trying to grasp some understanding about this huge shift that's taken place, because he explains everything according to history and stuff that's happened in the past, and cycles of this many year cycle, and it's coming around again, and the Mayan calendar, all this other stuff, right? Why was I telling you that? I forgot the question now. But okay, yeah. So there are a lot of people actually channeling how, yes, this is actually really happening. The vibration of the planet is raising. Scientifically, it can be measured. And as that's happening, we're living on it. Our vibration needs to raise too. So maybe think about blessing all that stuff that you think is so horrible. Number one, every time you say you think you hate yourself, you're just going to tell yourself you love yourself until you start believing it. Just change that story. Do not feed that story anymore. Stop feeding those bad stories. Like remind yourself, catch yourself. The more you catch yourself, the less you have to catch yourself, because it actually starts to dwindle away to where one day you're like, I don't think I told myself I hate myself. I don't even know the last time I said that. Right? Because you're changing the story. Right. Because a thought, well, okay, Abraham, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking.
Yep.
So you want to just change that story. Change the story. Change the story. Jeffrey, we're going through crap. With all this stuff, I know what I know about energy. I've been going through some really crazy stuff. And there's some days where it feels like, oh my God, I can't get myself out of this. I know how to do it. And then I'm like, all right. It just is what it is. And I go and find something else to do. I do something to distract myself. And then you know what? I wake up the next day, I'm like, holy shit, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Today's like great.
Yeah, that can easily happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the difference? It's like when you notice that makes it easier for you to be like, So you have some fun and you're like feeling good. If you're feeling good, you can't be hating on yourself, right? So find ways to feel good. And then you'll be like, okay, so on Monday I hated myself. On Tuesday I was like, yeah, I kind of hated myself. On Wednesday I loved myself. On Thursday I hated myself. On Friday I'm like ecstatic about my life. So like what changed? Nothing. It's just the energy that's moving through our system. And you know what? I think there's like some astrologers out there that, you know, sometimes when you put a little bit of that information to it too, and you see how, because everything's energy. So why wouldn't these humongous planets and all that have, why wouldn't they have an effect on us? Right? And as Earth is going through its stuff and whatever those planets are going through, it's a lot of energy. And we're just right here, right now, part of us is in this physical body. It's just trying to keep up.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, there was something interesting in the way that he phrased his question. I wanted to touch on it. He says, what do you think it means that we're experiencing these things at this time and we are here now with each other? And I thought to myself, what an interesting question that is to ask yourself. Instead of asking us, what do you think it means that we are all experiencing these things? Because that's the first step toward embracing whatever this negative thing is that you've been dragging along with you. What do you think it means?
You know what, too, Jeffrey? Why don't you journal? I'm sure you've done this before, but journal go back to the first time you felt like you hate, you know, how did he put it? Hate himself? I don't think you hate yourself.
No, he didn't say that. He said, well, yeah, he did say that, right. Oh, no, it was actually Nashu said that. So I was confusing.
Oh, okay.
I apologize about that.
Okay, so whoever's saying it, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, start journaling. What was the first time when you were made to feel that way? And I'm saying you were made to feel that way because you weren't born here feeling that way. Mm-hmm. Right? It's all outer experience, things that got triggered, things that are being pulled in, triggered now, past stuff. So what I like to do is just journal, like a mind dump. Doesn't make any sense. Whatever comes in your mind, you're like, maybe I'm journaling right now. I'm like, okay, I'm shuffling some cards. I'm going to pull another card. Okay, that's fun. Yeah. All right. And then I'm like, oh, I'm kind of hungry. Oh, the show's almost over. Oh, God, remember that time in third grade? Then you write the story there, right? And then you just, whatever comes in your mind, you're like, oh, it's kind of cold. I should get a blanket. Like, just keep writing it down. And then you're like, oh, man, I remember when I first got my driver's license and, like some story, right?
Stream of consciousness, basically.
By just writing it down, you're releasing the energy. Mm-hmm. It'll just change. You'll feel, I've done it before where I flipped from being at the bottom of the emotional scale to the top.
Wow.
Within how long was I writing? Maybe 10 minutes.
Wow, that's quick.
The energy just moved.
Yeah.
Because I didn't try to control it.
Yes.
Nothing made sense. If anyone were to read what I wrote, it made no sense.
But it doesn't have to.
Yeah, the stories that came out that actually did pop in my head, because I was in this free expression to allow them to pop in, I could not even see why this would make any sense to that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. It's just energy. So I think that when you're really feeling down, that's another thing you can do. It's just journal, whatever comes to your mind.
It's a great point, yeah. I mean, I was never really successful with journaling, but I think I was trying to overthink it too much. You made the great point. You just, whatever comes to you, you write it down. It literally, don't expect it to connect to what you thought of a moment ago. Yeah. Expect it to be all kind of nonsensical, but just write it all down. Because when you do, through that expression, like you say, you're letting go of it. You're just dismissing it and letting it dissipate and go away.
I don't journal regularly, but I'll journal if there's something that I'm stuck in my head about trying to figure out. And I'll just do that mind dump like that. Yeah. Or I used to like to do an appreciation. Hey, look who's there. I used to like to do an appreciation journal. And one of the teachers in the Chrissy Whitman's Coaching Academy, Law of Attraction Coaching Academy, she was talking about, using your appreciation journal. And it's the first time I heard it was from her. I don't think I ever heard it from Abraham. It might be her own spin on it. She would write like 5 to 10 things she appreciated from that day. Appreciation, gratitude, whatever it might be. Flip the page and do future appreciations. Ah. It didn't happen yet. She's just writing it as if it did. I created a lot of stuff that way. Mm-hmm. Where, some guy just knocked on my door. I wound up having my driveway repaved for like half the money I thought it would cost when I had no money to do it. But somehow I got it done. And because I was writing my future appreciations, because I live in New York here, I'm like, I'd write things, well, some things were, simple, like, oh, so nice, those guys. I really appreciate it when I gave them snacks and drinks today. They worked so hard. I really appreciate the work they're doing. Oh, my neighbor came over, told me the house looks great. Like, I'm making up these little stories, right? I'm like, oh, it was so much fun shoveling the driveway today without getting stabbed in the stomach by hitting the potholes, And I would get in the energy of it like it existed.
Yep.
And the next thing I know, my husband and I are home one day. Some guy's knocking on my door, really gruff-looking, dirty-looking guy. I'm like, yeah, hello. He goes, I noticed your driveway needs some repair, and I have a truckload of leftover asphalt from a job I did down the road. I'm like, okay, hold on. Meet me around the side. I close the door. I go to my husband. The universe is knocking on our door. I got to go talk to this guy. And somehow I got it done the next day.
Wow. Yeah. That's really great.
Yeah.
That's a good story. That's a good story to end on.
And that's just future appreciation, right? It's just, setting up a new story.
Absolutely.
Feeling it. Of course, you got to feel it, right?
Very important. Yeah. Yeah, you did all the right things, and boy, what a result you got out of it. That's fabulous. Hey, before we part company for the day, I want to remind people who are not yet subscribers, what are you waiting for? Come on, subscribe. It's so easy. Just go to loatoday.net, and right at the top of the page, it will show you in step-by-step fashion how to subscribe. And then once you subscribe, all of our episodes come streaming right to your device. And also, check us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube and do a search for LOA Today podcast videos. And once you find us, click the little subscribe button and the little bell so that you can be notified every single time that we are live streaming or recording something or just uploading something. And that way you can follow us that way as well. So,
you know what, though? Before we end, since Alex popped in, let's unmute and say hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. I can't have those cute little ears come up and not acknowledge them.
But see, that's the news of the week is her unicorn headphones, So this is, in fact, the only thing are they lit? They aren't lit. How come they're not lit?
Because I'm not working right now. This is.
What does that have to do with it?
All right, hold on. There they go.
Oh, you know what? Well, can we do one card? Because it just came up. Time to heal. Snake.
Yeah, sure. Let's do a card. Why not?
All right. Let me find it. See if I can find it fast. 55. Time to heal. I don't know who we're talking to. Everybody. Everybody.
Most likely.
All right. So it says time to heal. All of us need healing at times. And when snake spirit appears, it's time to repair, renew, and replenish yourself and your vulnerable heart. Self-care and maintenance work are needed so that your vitality can arise. Give yourself the space to nourish your own well-being. I mean, that's where we started today, I think, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, vulnerability is necessary for friendships and partnerships to work, which means all of us will have tender emotions at times. So be gentle with yourself and others now. Shed the past, step into a new way of being, for vitality is rising within you. This might be a good time to honor the work that you've done to heal, grow, and repair any damage within you, within those you care about, and within your community. Celebrate together how far you've come in your healing journey and all that you've created. Unburden yourself of anything that you know that no longer supports your wellness, prosperity, positive relationship, and well-being, and open the door for healing to occur. Yes, that's the card for the rest of the week. Let's do it.
That's an even better ending than the story. That's a great combination. Absolutely fab. Thank you. Appreciate that so much. So I look forward to talking to you again next Friday, as usual. And, of course, Alex will be with me on Tuesday and Thursday and just about any other day that she decides to pop her head in. That's what she's good at. So thanks for the surprise visit, and we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.